Welcome to Carolina Sculpture Studio. My name's Clint Button, and I'm a Granite sculptor. Welcome to video number 74 of the Virtual Stone Carving Apprenticeship. All right, we got a lot done on this stone yesterday. Last video, whatever you want to call it. So, got the floor raked up. We're going to start on truing these lines up. And there's not a whole lot to show, you know, famous last words. I'm going to go ahead and clear this off, and then we'll probably get dusty again before we quit for the day. I'm hoping I can clear all these off here pretty quick. As I said before, we don't have to do a lot to clean this up because we're only going to worry about the line. And we don't have to preserve this long flat ledge. We had to cut it in and have a flat of some type in order to be able to break the stone. We're done pitching. We've got all the rock pitch done. Still got to pitch the corners in a little bit, but I want to get this line straightened up and get this cleaned up so we can move forward. The only thing I can really think of in terms of doing this scotia is, of course, I never make mistakes. You know, a surgeon never says whoops. When he's standing over you and he's working on you and he cuts you open, he goes, uh-oh, you don't want to hear that. He's going to go, that's interesting. And he's not, he could say whoops. So what I've got to do is I got to go around my whole edge here and make sure that I'm not really deep in a way that's going to wreck this. Because most of this, even if I'm a little deep, I've still got at least 1/8 of an inch or more to push in to make it plumb. And so I'll go past where that depth is. I'll migrate in and I can move it up. And it shouldn't be any problem because we're going to cut that scotia away. It's not like we're trying to cut a perfect bevel. We got a curve. And so, easy way to deal with that, folks, is I can loosen this screw and I can extend this 1/16 of an inch, maybe 1/8 of an inch. Then it won't be cut to depth, and nobody will ever know unless you tell them. Usually when you get if you're doing one of these projects and you get a pattern from somebody, then you can set the pattern up ahead of time. And, you know, in that case, I would have left this depth a little bit short for exactly this reason. Then I could extend it to make it perfect. So I cut that last little bit with a chisel and a hand machine and make it spot on perfect. Because I'm developing this as we go. We know what we want. We know what we're getting. But I don't have an absolute spec that I was provided by an architect or something that this scotia has to be a perfect echo of something else in the design. If I have to extend this a little bit for what I'm doing, it's just fine. But if you're doing it to somebody's drawing, I probably would have set this up 1/8 of an inch to make sure that I was really careful going in, so I wouldn't have wouldn't dig too deep. Part of what I'm trying to accomplish with this element of the overall project is I don't want a large 4-inch whatever step around the base. Around the joint of the actual stone. I want this element to look more integral so that there's a minor transition from this element to the next element, which is the plinth on the sculpture, on the die, on the actual carving, and then it goes up to the stone and the figure. I don't want big transitions because I want this to look more integral. Now on the back here, this is the way this is laid out. The angel's going to be standing right about here. And the die is going to be over here. There will be a cutout in the back because we can't have a wide piece like that that's 6 inches or even 8 inches would not be ideal. We don't want a wide transition, like a wide piece of stone like that, because it's going to be very fragile in terms of the installation. So we'll cut that back to look appropriate to the front, to the back, probably a little bigger on the back, but we'll get rid of that. So we're going to get rid of a whole big column of stone right here. Plus we're going to cut off the top of this over here above the die. So coming good. Looking forward to sitting down and just relaxing and cutting some lines. So I'm gonna cut these lines and let's cut some stone. Okay, I went all the way around the stone to proof it. Checked all my depths. And this right here is the lowest spot on the entire stone as far as where I saw it, how deep I went. So, and it's very close to being square. I'm not gonna go in a lot and recover it. So I'm gonna reset my square, my tri-square, and I'll probably put just something, I'll come up just a tiny bit. We'll tighten that up good. And that's going to be our new reference. So we'll go all the way around, and this is within, most of this is really close anyways, but that right there will make it perfect. And we'll cut this in and start our line, and we'll just go ahead and make the whole thing that much, because most of these around here, they're all pretty close. You know, it's a little about 1/8 of an inch. So I'll put this flat reference line in, and it'll all be good. Let's cut some stone. Because I only have to have a line here and not a flat ledge or surface, I can tip this back to where it's really close. Then I go in here and I can start squaring this up. Now this is another good opportunity to erode everything around it, to leave that there. We want to try to not stun a line and cut a line that goes the whole length. We want to just leave a line there so that we don't have to dig to clean it out. So, but because we're cut all this extra off, trimming this edge up should go a lot faster. So I'll go right down the whole edge and tip this, you know, while I'm sitting. Get all this into shape, so all I gotta do is tune up a short area. And by using a 9-point to pulverize it, I can go down with a chisel and do this, and it could dig a big hole and take a big piece out. I don't want that. I want to push it down with a 9-point, so I got more control. While I'm doing this, instead of moving around all over the world and going right by and going right by, I'm trying to do more of working in a spot and getting it together. I'm pushing this down up here, mostly with a 2-blade. You run it in, being careful not to tip it like this. So I dig, I want to stay pretty vertical. Then I can check all my depths, my squareness and everything. But while I'm doing that, I've also pushed this down some, you know, with a 9-point like I talked about. I'm also doing this bottom edge here, going down to this red line, because the more I work, the more I'm going to rub that line off. So I'm going to rough this in, and then I'll finish it with a 2-blade, tip it and bevel it right down to this red line, so I've got a really nice reference. And then we're not going to lose as much information while we're working, because it's real easy to rub this off while you're working. We can clean this up as we're going, and it'll be a lot more even. When we start taking away to do the scotia, we can go away in a consistent manner, because when you're trying to produce that finished surface, if you work from a fairly even surface or consistent surface, you can get better judgment, just like we had to reference the depth of this saw cut from here because this bottom was wonky and all over the place. We'll get this fixed, we'll tune this up as we go, and this will be a bevel, and it'll be a lot easier to just clean it off and know that we got to cut a certain amount of depth and we're all done. Now as I move around this corner, I got the front done. Looks pretty decent. As I move around this corner, I've got to remember, just like we had to remember that this corner was a forever corner, so we got to be really careful. We're not going to fix it. This will be on the interior. However that looks. This will go up to this corner up here. It'll bisect it right out here on the corner. But because this will be a curve and this will be a curve, this is good real estate. We're going to have to keep this. So we have to be careful not to stress this corner too much, because that's going to be right on that miter on that corner. When we take this side off and this side off, that's what it's going to pass right through there. So we got to be careful. That's really important. But this isn't as critical. I mean, we can make this line just as perfect as we made this bottom line, but this line needs to be pretty straight. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect because we're still going to cut it off and axe over it. But this will give us a very good baseline to develop our scotia. It should look really good. And then after we get this tip, and we'll do the same thing, we're working on the end now. We'll figure out just how high we want to come and try to balance it with what we've got up here so that we get a nice transition. So this isn't too big. Part of leaving this too big, another problem, is going to make this really steep. And we want this to be a little more gradual, so we'll have to go in a little bit and then work our curve up. So, got to remember what's important and what's not as you're cutting. That's critical right there, right on that corner. So you got to take good care of it. Back to cut. As you work your way around these corners, when you reduce here and reduce here, this goes back to everything I keep saying. We're not going to cut right out to this corner at first. We'll leave a little bit extra material on here. We'll cut away behind it so it's relieved, so it breaks off easy in a controlled manner. But then we have to take sharp tools and we work into the mass. We don't work like this and push to where it'll pop up, because it'll pop and it's have to carry a bunch of weight with it. We'll capture that mass, that hump, and then we'll push it into the larger mass. We should have a pretty controlled break and make a nice corner. That was with a round chisel. Okay, so we got good control. Then go back and straighten it up. Okay, that makes a nice transition. Now I'll move my stool and I'll do the same thing, and I'll come from this direction. I'll start with a nice sharp round chisel and I'll push the bulk off. I'll start on, it doesn't matter where you start, on the very edge, work on the interior. We've already cut this away to relieve it, so it's got a place to collapse or break to, and that's really important. This is just like I showed you on doing the corners, on squaring the block. You got to be able to do edges even when they're going to be wasted away, because this is going to curve. We're going to lose a lot of that, but we don't want to blow it off, because the chance of having a big fracture here and it carry down into where we've got to save stone either down here or up here, it's not good. So this is just rough it in, but you practice this always. You never just layer it into it, start blowing the corners off, unless you're going to just waste everything. Okay, back to cut. Let's do a quick excerpt, show you how, the progress of this, just so it's on tape. Now, when you're new at this, this is the back side. The back side's a smart place to start until you're really good at it and you know you're never going to make a mistake. Even when you're never going to make a mistake, it's the better place to start. I started on the front just because I did, but I've done this for a long time. If you're just starting your first one, save the show side, the good side, for last, so when you get things all figured out, you can do a better job with it. Okay, I'm gonna cut this in and out so you don't have to watch, 8 minutes or 10 minutes of me running the hand machine. But I'll start. I'll rough this in with a 9-point down about to approximately to the line. Then I'll tip it. I'll finish smoothing it up to the line with a 2-blade. Then I'll do the top with a 9-point, and I'll leave an island in the middle that's raised, and then I'll take that off. Okay. And once we get at least half of this side done, get a bunch of it done before we start worrying about evening this up. If you do the same thing over and over again, don't switch. Keep doing the same thing over and over again. You'll end up doing better than to finishing it all the way to the end right here, all the way to the end right here, all the way to the end right here as you go along. Finish part of it to the end, and then move on and do the next step, and you'll end up doing better. But we'll, like I said, start with a 9-point, 2-blade, and we'll just keep working it down and get it close. So I'll chop this up and save you some time. I'm editing this video, I want to point something out that y'all should be noticing. When I'm cutting this stone, I've got suction, and I want you to see, just look back at that video, this last little bit, of how much of that dust goes straight up the tube. And it goes up the tube, and there's a dropout right there. And I know I've been over this before. This is a dropout, so the heavy stuff will precipitate out, and then there's a takeoff right here that goes into the suction trunk, and that runs down the whole length of the bench with a couple others, one other plumbed in, a couple other ready to go if I wanted to. And then I've got a cyclone that separates the dust into a barrel. Now, this is a Torrent and Roomland booms. This is the real professional stuff. Even if you don't have that, you can go get a big dust deputy cyclone or Nida cyclone, whatever, that'll handle a larger tube. You can use a small shop vac, but you can put a suction head for a wood dust collector and have one of those bigger cyclones. You can have a really good dust collector that'll take out the vast majority of the dust, and it won't leave a whole lot left to blow through your actual vacuum. And if you exhaust it outside, you can run it outside and deal with a lot of it that way. But put some kind of dust collector in to deal with your dust. Don't just cut and live in a bomb of dust, because that dust is going to get in your clothes. It's going to go home with you. It's going to go into your other buildings. It's going to wreck tools. It's going to get in your furniture at the house. Whoever does your laundry is going to be sucking that dust every day, and then it'll be in all your house, everywhere. And you'll walk around and all that little dust you'll see is silica dust. You don't need that. Put some kind of dust collector in and stay safe. I should wear a mask all the time. I don't. If I'm working close to the pipe, the pipe is effective for one diameter of the pipe. And once you go beyond one diameter away, so this is a 4-inch pipe. So within 4 inches, this will suck dust, and that's how you rate them, is the diameter of the pipe. And if you got the proper suction unit, it'll work great. Get some kind of dust collector, set it up. Take care of yourself, because I'm sure I've got some level of dust in my lungs, and that's just the way it goes, man. But get a dust collector. These old Roomland booms with the dropouts are fantastic. You can arrange something like that, have it go into one barrel and then go into a second cyclone. It'll drop out the big pieces, if it'll lift them that far. You can just use a piece of drain pipe, the corrugated pipe that doesn't have any holes in it. That's what we use for some of the weird stuff to reach. But put some kind of dust collector in and take care of yourself, because you will die. And there's nothing romantic about coming out and being in this big cloud of, like the guy off of the cartoon thing that walked around, who's always had this cloud of dirt around him. Yeah, it's funny on a cartoon. When you sit down in the seat of your truck and everything goes poof and it's just this huge bomb of dust, it's not fun. Back to cutting. got that whole reference line produced all the way around, got it pretty straight as it needs to be. Now I went ahead, got to make our patterns. I went ahead and sketched this. Going to get this curve figured out here. Transition, it'll go right through there. And if you get on the end, because this is uneven, it's hard to show you. But the way this draws, if I go down about a quarter inch, which I'm planning to go a quarter inch here, be a ½ inch up, so the ½ inch up on the bottom, and a quarter inch in, so this is dominant, this is bigger. We'll put a line around here at ½ an inch, and we got a couple of steps to do next. If I can cut the saw, run the saw pretty straight, this is 1.5 inches. So this mark is right where I thought it would be. So we take the big saw, run the body on the inside so the blade only cuts this far, run one cut down all the way around, just go all 4 sides. We'll actually have the next reference line. Then we'll waste that off or whatever, the order, we'll figure it out. I'll put a mark here at ½ inch or maybe 5/8, just a little bit, because typically you'll have an edge and you'll break the edge after you produce it. You don't leave it sharp square because that sharp square tends to chip. So we'll bevel it just a little bit just to break it, whether we brick it or run a chisel on it. So if this is ½ an inch with an extra 1/8 for the bevel, so if we go 5/8 here, then we come in a little bit, about a quarter inch flat. Then when we take this off, because we'll now have this reference line, we can go around and we'll check it real quick. We'll have this reference line and this reference line, and we should be able to start doing our scotia all the way around. I'm going to go cut 2 patterns, 2 metal patterns to check this, and we'll get to work on this here, and it should come pretty good. May go ahead and wrap this video up because I think this video is pretty much, we're pretty close to where it ought to be. Wrap this up so we can get this posted, and then we'll start the next video with, I'll take a dust bath before the next video. Go ahead and saw this line in because that's just sawing it in, and then we'll be able to start and go all the way around. We'll probably tip a little bit of a bevel on this as well. Once we cut that, we'll just run a chisel with probably a bush chisel and just bevel that to help, because this is waste for our polishing, and we got nice weather right now. I may go ahead and polish this right away, but we'll try to do a nice scotia here. We'll make our patterns up and get to work. My name's Clint Button. I'm a granite sculptor here at Carolina Sculpture Studio with the Virtual Stone Carving Apprenticeship. Thanks for coming in.